Good day and welcome back to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast, where today we have Hannah McDonald from the Better Together group. She works for Better Together, but she also has a podcast, so you're going to have to listen up and find out more about her podcast as well. Let's get right into it. Welcome, Hannah McDonald.
Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
The topic today for our audience is women in a male-dominated industry. So what the hell? We can throw the odd word in there because, Hannah, where in the heck are you hanging your hat at the moment?
Oh my gosh, in what regard, Chris? In
Work. Let's talk about work.
Okay, work. So right now I am currently located in Orlando, Florida, and I do part of my work here. We have started a business here about a year ago, a little more than that. And so I work in sales here and support some of our operations as things start to get rolling. And then I also do a lot of work in Toronto right now with my family's business, which is the Better Together group. And I'm also working in the sales division there. And then I run all of our marketing across the border, so Canada and the US. And we've got some really fun projects on the line, but I guess you'll have to come back for more of those.
Okay. Now, what is the Better Together group?
The Better Together group of companies is a group of 3 different agencies that help supply employees to companies who can't find the employees that they need. So we work with Revolution Staffing, which is in transportation, which is how we, of course, got connected. Help Unlimited does light industrial. They also do some skilled labor. And then Essential Staffing does specifically permanent placement. So someone who's coming directly onto your team. And then we'll also do some temporary office staffing. So if you've got someone who's off on mat leave or something like that nature.
And here's a little tidbit that you didn't know. Many, many years ago, a long time ago, before the Better Together group owned Help Unlimited, I used to use Help Unlimited.
Really?
Oh, yes. This is back in my Sears home delivery days. And often on a Saturday, we would use Help Unlimited to supply us with the second person in a delivery truck. So that's...
Oh, I really love that. I love how full circle that is. What year would that have been?
Oh my God, back in the 80s.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's the best. That's the best. The other day we were at a trade show and the person we were sitting next to was like putting all of it together, seeing our signs, saw the Help Unlimited logo. And he's like, I got my start in transportation through Help Unlimited. And Help Unlimited isn't currently actually transportation. We pivoted that to Revolution Staffing so that they all have their own niche specifications. But I mean, just to see that still full circle and coming back from, I think it was 66 that it started, which is insane. But
wow.
So,
that's long
so special. Love to hear that.
Yeah. So anyway, we are talking about women in a male-dominated industry. What industry? So Revolution Staffing, the Better Together group is not necessarily in male-dominated industries, but certainly Revolution Staffing in transportation, that would be included. What is it like being a female working with all of us wonderful men?
Well, it's really interesting. So I would say that Revolution Staffing absolutely is in male-dominated industries. I would say that Help Unlimited is also absolutely in the male-dominated sphere. We do so many different things with Help Unlimited. Saying one specific industry is kind of irrelevant because we are able to touch so many different types of roles. But what we do end up with is lots of warehouses, is lots of really interesting types of careers. I like to tell people the first time that I ever went on a site tour, I got in the car. I was a co-op student, so I was doing a co-op at the company. I was still in high school at this point. Got in the car, and the sales rep that I was with was like, "What shoes are those?" I was like, "What do you mean? They're my shoes." And she was like, No, you don't understand. We went to Walmart, got the steel-toed shoes, went to the site and did a site tour. And we did a site tour through a meat manufacturing facility where we walked through, it was the nastiest of things. I've never done it again, and I would absolutely refuse because every time I think about it, I nearly vomit. But like walked through this facility, stepped over like rivers of blood that were just pooling on the ground. Like it was just nasty. And so there are some moments where it is like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? But there are so many other moments where I get to look at and learn about some of the most incredible things that I never would have had the opportunity to learn about before. So, for a different example, the other day I went to a facility here in Orlando. It was a warehouse facility, manufacturing facility, downtown Orlando. Super weird. You would never expect it to be in this area. It's like just outside, but in this little sweet industrial street that has probably 5 or 6 just different facilities. And we pull in and we're talking to some of these incredible people who are making tanks that go underground to hold oil and water and all of these different things. And I just feel like I get to go on a field trip every single day. Like I'm always in school. I'm always learning. I get to go to all of these different amazing places and learn about so many really cool things that I never would even think to be interested in myself, but are so genuinely intriguing. Like I get so interested every day. Now my husband hates it because I do cold calls and I walk in the back of warehouses by myself and just knock on dock doors and I'm like, hello, is anybody here? I'd love to chat with you. And so it is an ebb and a flow and it goes both ways, but I love it so frequently and could just not recommend it more to other people. Sorry, that's such a long-winded answer, but
Well, no, I'm just wondering about what are some of the challenges that you have in a male-dominated industry? And, a follow-up question would be, and don't answer this one yet, but stay on the challenges, but what are the advantages?
yeah,
So,
I would say challenges, you're going to face challenges with being a female in a male's world anywhere. Realistically, if you're a female and you live in this world, you face struggles with the opposite gender just based on being who you are and being who they are. And so it's not fair to necessarily pin all of this against being in a male dominated industry because realistically, it's a space that is still open for more females to come into. And that is part of the pro. And I'll get there in a minute. But I mean, when I was 14 and I started working for the company, I would call with a fake name because I was a minor and I was scared of truckers knowing my name and having my phone number. And that was a reasonable fear because I had a couple people who were like, oh, Bella, what a wonderful name you sound. So, and I'm like, no, 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 no. And it's like, you don't even understand what is on the other side of this phone call right now. Like I'm a minor and this is like, so many boundaries are being crossed. But in the exact same breath, it was a family business. And so I was like, yeah, do you want to come meet my dad? He owns the company. You can come see him. His name is Dave. And so there's so much protection there. And I think that it's really important for companies to understand that the females that are in their industries might be facing some of those types of struggles. And so it's important for them to protect their employees. And I think that being my father's daughter in the company has really helped him see that. And I think has really helped him take that protective role, not only over me, but over everybody in the organization. And it's really been like a bit of a shift of our culture, I think. But then at the exact same time, like you learn to deal with it. So again, that was when I was first starting and I was like, I don't know how to talk to you. Just go talk to my dad. Like I was a 14-year-old girl. Whereas a couple weeks ago, I had someone from manufacturing plant reach out to me and they were like, Hannah, it was so good to see you the other day. And just the way that they were communicating with me, the way that they were talking to me, I could understand it was coming from a really bad place. And so I tried to shut it down right away and it did not de-escalate and it increased. And it got to a place where I was like, hey, you know what, sir? I want to help you with your staffing. I'm happy to talk to you about your staffing. If you're not interested in talking about your staff, I'm going to walk out that door right now. And you can call me when you do, because that's the reason that I come to work every day.
Mhm.
But having a conversation that's going to entertain you and any dream that you're trying to have
Mhm.
is irrelevant to something that I'm trying to pursue. So it's a matter of understanding where people are coming from and then just setting your boundaries up front and being like, no, let me stop you right there. Like, this
Mhm.
is not going to
Mhm.
work for me. And you know what? We ended up working with that company and it was perfectly fine. They absolutely apologized. They were like, that I was in the wrong. That was a bad moment. I don't even know. We move on from it. People are people.
Mhm.
People make mistakes, and you don't want that to get in the way. But it can be challenging to learn how to set those boundaries. But it's possible. And so there are some of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a struggle. But again, you deal with that anywhere you go in any way, because people are people and life is life, and that's just going to be the way um, that the world works, unfortunately, because sometimes people suck.
Mhm.
But in the exact same breath, being a woman in a male dominated industry has so many opportunities. I mean, especially I had the pleasure of coming into it at a really young age, and I have a lot of aspirations for a young person. And so I'm pushing really hard at it. And so I've got both, like, I am young and I am a female. And I think that a lot of people are really curious about that in its own. They're like, what is this girl even doing? Like, I don't
Mhm.
understand what is going on. This girl in a tiny thing in a little, like, massive truck. I don't like, what is the contradiction here? It's so questionable. And I think that adds so much value to me in the way that my career has been able to escalate forward. And so there's something annoying about sticking out like a sore thumb. There's also something absolutely incredible about sticking out like a sore thumb. And so it's just about really how you use that, I think.
Mhm.
Well, you know, you've got, I think, different challenge than some other people. I'll say it the way I feel it. You are a very young and attractive female in a male dominated industry. And as you alluded to earlier, as you said, it can create some challenges. And
Mhm.
I like what you said about set the boundaries and probably set them very early as soon as the
Mhm.
conversation starts going that way, because it ain't going to happen.
Mhm. Well, I
Yeah.
was going to say
Yeah.
one of the interesting things that I'm hearing from your conversation, Hannah, is support is huge. Whether it be a family business with family support or an employer that supports you, is huge. When you're doing customer facing or into situations where it is more predominantly male dominated and whatnot, but having that support behind you is huge to help you give the confidence to make those steps forward. So,
Yeah.
and there's no doubt about it. My daughter is a business owner as well, and there's things that she had to overcome to get in there. Now she's not in a male dominated world, but still she deals with a lot of males. But it's you have to have that confidence to going into it that, yep, I'm going to do this. I am going to. It's not like I have to prove something. It's just I'm going to be confident. I'm going to have that conversation. And as you said in that situation, I'm going to set the boundaries. We're going to set the boundaries. This is how we're going to play, and knowing how to shut that down when it's not comfortable for you. And
Mhm.
again, going back to making sure you have the support behind you that says, nope, no problem. You made the right call. That's how we're going to move forward.
Mhm. And it's hard because I think that a lot of females, especially younger females who are coming out of high school trying to do co-ops or coming out of university trying to start careers, a lot of those females are dependent on using their appearance to get some of the things that they want based on the way that they've achieved things in the past, which isn't
Mm.
necessarily here nor there. I mean, depending on your own opinion. But when you come into your career world, it's really important not only to set your boundaries externally, but to set them internally as well. To understand where you stand within yourself and what you're willing to put out for other people to see, rather than letting it kind of happen to you. And so for me, I mean, it's really simple. It's like I have personal social medias where I will happily, I mean, I love wakeboarding. It is a passion of mine, but I'm in a bathing suit when I do that. And so that's
Mhm.
a place for that. That is my personal private space. And I can do some of those things in those places. But would I ever put something like that out on LinkedIn? No, absolutely not. And so it's understanding kind of who you are, where you come from, where your intentions lie, and where you're willing to go with it, and then setting those boundaries externally so other people understand the way that they can communicate with you, but also internally so that you're not, I don't want to say inviting because that is not the right term, but um, it's not exploiting yourself either, but putting yourself out there in a vulnerable space, I suppose, is a better way to phrase it. And so just really, really being intentional about what you do there, I think in a male dominated space is really important for sure, especially for young females who are coming into their careers and are still kind of coming into their own and understanding the way that they dress even in a workspace is so hard because they don't even necessarily understand that. That's one of the things. We have so many co-op students who have come in with us. And it's one of the things they struggle with. They're like, how do I wear leggings and hoodies every single day to class? I don't know what to wear to an office every day. I did Zoom calls for 3 years. I have no idea how to buy a pair of slacks. How is that even supposed to fit my body? And so it's such a funny thing to think about, but you're right. Like it's so much about the upper level supporting them as they come in and being like, let me help guide you through this without putting limitations or expectations on them, but just a sense of support, just a sense of I've experienced this and I want to help you in the way that you want me to be helping you.
Well, sadly enough, we have men in the industry that don't know how to dress properly for work, showing up in flip-flops and shorts to go drive a tractor trailer into a construction zone. Not quite the appropriate work attire.
You would think steel-toed would be a pretty simple, but no. Bare-toed, apparently, is also.
Yeah, exactly.
And going back to your comment about how to dress and doing Zoom and everything, it brought up or reminded me that there's a lot of young people of your age who have anxiety about making a phone call. It's a real thing. Oh.
Don't even get me started on this. This is so funny. So my entire university and some of my high school, I did our after hours online calls. And so that staffing agency, dispatch, drivers, I mean, you have to have someone that's available 24/7. And so I would always answer, hi, Hannah McDonald, Revolution Staffing. How can I help you? And my friends in high school and university, they thought it was the funniest thing. They thought it was the weirdest thing. And I was dubbed the forever phone call maker. If we needed to order reservations, if we needed to go bowling and book an alley, if I needed to call somewhere and ask a question, they were like, where's Hannah? I never the phone. Like it's so funny, the paralysis that they have over making phone calls. And it's just like, I mean, it's sad in so many ways, but I think that it'll be interesting to see how it affects people who were in high school and in university coming into their careers, because it's already challenging. It's one of the first things we tell all of our co-op students to do. It's sit here, make 50 phone calls today. Good luck.
Yep.
And they're just like,
I'm testing out some new, what do you call it? Software, where I bring in leads. And the reason I'm testing this new software is the sales pitch for it is, do you know how many people don't want to call you? If you don't have a SMS texting software, you're losing out. And so that's what this software allows me to do is, if I can get their mobile number, is to communicate via text with them as opposed to actually talking to them. And so anyway, it's.
But that's so sad.
Isn't it?
Sad. It's like let's go back to basics. Like pick up the phone or have a conversation with someone. Could we just learn to communicate like human beings? I don't know.
Yep.
But
yes, efficiency, but.
And the biggest problem I see with SMS is you don't hear the voice. So much of the intent of the message, I think, gets lost to its literal words, and that's open for so much interpretation. It's very sad.
The lack of emotion can change what you read in that text message, because you may go, I think it might be this way, and then go, oh, but if he's using this kind of tone or this emotion, oh my God, now it's really bad.
Oh,
You know?
it's okay, Johnny. I put emojis in my text.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
They're on
Apparently
the
the
rise.
thumbs up is frowned upon nowadays, and what I really thought was a cool thing back in my day.
Yeah.
So yeah. So,
Well, I mean,
Every
like,
generation has emojis that they'll like. And
yes,
it's
exactly.
hard to keep
Exactly.
up. It's impossible.
no, I mean, I bring this up just because my stepdaughter, she's gotten so much better recently. She can actually make a phone call and order pizza. But, 2 or 3 years ago, that wasn't possible.
Wow.
And we're talking
2 or
about
3 years ago, she was locked in a pandemic, shut in the house, and cut off from all of society. Of course, she was stunted. She was like, I literally don't even know how to function as a typical average person does, just like leaving in the house. It's yeah,
That's sad.
interesting.
Anyways, Workish. Let's talk about a podcast that Hannah has called Workish. And Workish is about what?
Workish is about work. Ish.
Hmm.
It's it's
Something like that.
it's really meant to be a little bit redundant, but basically I was a high school teacher at some point, and had a lot of students that I knew and cared about, and understood the education system, and was very alarmed with their lack of understanding of career opportunities that were ahead of them. And so I think so many people think about the future as you can be a firefighter, you can be a police officer, you can go into business. If you go into business, you can be a consultant. I mean, there's that's kind of or in finance, those are the two things that people think of. And so it's it's fairly streamlined in a lot of ways. People don't necessarily know all of the different niche opportunities that are available to them. And this devastates me as a staffing person. I think that if people knew about how many different career opportunities were out there, they would be so much more excited to go to work every day. They would be so much more excited because they would be in something that they cared about more. And so I really just wanted to create a platform where I could start talking to different people about different career paths that they were in, and understand the roles that they were in, and understand how they got where they got, and then kind of give some genuinely practical advice that comes from that. And so that's typically what each episode looks like. It goes, okay, like who are you? Let's meet you. What's your name? Where do you come from? What's your story? And then we go back to the beginning. Tell me where were you? Where were you? Pardon me. Tell me when you graduated. And then we go through their journey kind of from there, the career pivots that they had made, why they made them, whether they were intentional, whether they fell into their laps. And it's really interesting to kind of I've now done, I believe, 13 episodes and dropped about 8 or 9 of them. And it's really interesting to look at the different patterns between the different women and see some of the things that they chose to do and some of the things that happened to them in consistency with the other women, even though they're in different jobs or in different career paths. And so it's interesting. I never even thought about it from that perspective when I was originally starting it, because I was originally starting it and I had connected with this guy named Bruce who has a podcast as well. And he was like, I do
You
series.
can say his last name.
Bruce Elridge. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. You know Bruce. Bruce
is the best. But yeah, he gave me this tip. He's like, I do all of my podcasts in series. So I go through them and I finish a series out. And I was like, oh, this is actually the best way to possibly do a podcast, because the concept of adopting an entire podcast and consistently, there we go. I love to see it. That's the best. It's a great hat. The concept of adopting the entire podcast seemed so overwhelming. So I just stuck to little series. And so this is the women in male dominated series. The next one, oh my gosh, I have like 10 different ones I want to do. I'm so excited.
Oh.
Like I want to do a family business one. I want to do a Gen Z entrepreneur one. I want to do, there's so many different things down the line I'm so excited about. but it's escalated into something that I thought I might like from something and just that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I'm like, oh, I just want to run 100 different directions with it and really need to rein it in. But it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun to do this year.
What I heard you say, just to kind of not recap, but Workish, at least the first several episodes, are women. Your guests are women, and they're predominantly in a male-dominated industry.
Correct. Yes.
So which is bringing it back to our topic today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So the first one I did was with Sarah Mackey, and it was all about transportation. And then I've done a lot since then. I've done one from a girl who's in a tech industry. I've done one who's a public speaker. I've done one with a pilot. I've done one with a personal trainer, one with a professional athlete, one with like a really wide variety of different women. And it's been really, really great because there's so many of them I've just been able to pull in from my personal network. Just like, hey, come on, let's do this thing together and let's go.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Great idea.
Really, really fun.
Yeah.
So, and we will have links to the podcast Workish in the show notes down below. If you want to check Hannah out.
Perfect.
To wrap up, tell us again about the Better Together group, and your contact info obviously will, well, perhaps not obviously, it will be in the contact or in the show notes down below.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
The joys of living in an apartment. Sorry, my dog was just going off for a moment there. Yes. Well, the Better Together group, we help find jobs for people, and we help find people for companies who need employees. That's realistically what we do. And so we're happy to connect with anyone and support them. I have a massive passion for Gen Zs. And so if you're trying to learn, if you're a company listening to this and you're like, I'm trying to learn how to connect with my Gen Z employees, like I have no idea how to communicate with them. I have no idea where they come from or what they're saying when they're talking to me, reach out. I'd love to connect with you about that too. But yeah, you can just honestly find me on LinkedIn, Hannah MacDonald, MacDonald, Dannacker, which is my new last name. Or you can send me an email, which is just hannah@bettertogethergroup.com.
And yes, Hannah recently put a ring on her finger.
I did. Well, I didn't. I put a ring on someone else's finger and someone else put a ring on mine. But
there you go.
Yes, correct. And by the way, because I've known your dad for a big number of years, I'll bet you 20. I remember being at a trade show. I don't know if he would remember this. I believe it was in Kitchener. The Kitchener truck show was really small, and he was just starting out in those days, and it was called Revolution Staffing. But the thing I wanted to add that perhaps you couldn't is I know your dad, and I know he's ethical. So not all staffing agencies, at least in the old days when I used to hire from staffing agencies, could I have said that about the owners, that they were also ethical. So I will throw that out for the Better Together group. Dave McDonald is an ethical person, and I'm sure Hannah falls under that because you are also a wonderful person. And I first met you at the truck show in Toronto many, many years ago.
I was going to say, I don't even know what year that would be. I was looking at some of my old photos because I was missing it on the TTC dinner last night. Yes. And I had photos from 7 years ago, which for you, I'm sure does not sound like a crazy amount of time, but for me, I was still in my early high school days. And so it was really interesting to see those. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to be in the industry. It's so good. Love it. But yeah, that would have probably been a couple of years ago, I think, coming to, you said Truck World?
Yeah, I think it was, I'm sure it was Truck World. Yeah.
I've been coming to Truck World for, I think, a decade now, which as a 24-year-old is a really long time. So,
yep, big time. Big time.
I remember the day that I met you, you were alone in the Revolution Staffing booth. And I couldn't believe you were.
It checks out. Dave abandons me all the time. He runs off, goes to the bathroom, goes to meet people. He's like, I'll be 2
Yeah.
minutes. Comes back 4
Yeah.
hours later.
No,
He's like, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
exactly.
I saw so many people.
Yeah, the man thing.
That-
I get accused for that. It's an old man thing. It's an old man thing.
It happens when you're loved. Hey, we'll say that. When you
Yep,
walk through a
yep.
room and people just are like,
Yep.
"Oh, John, I've been looking
Yep.
to talk to you.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, it does. And I think that is a great spot to wrap this one. What an awesome interview with Hannah McDonald-Dannacker, talking about how this very special challenges that women face in a male-dominated industry. And I think what it is that we can do, us men can do about it. Join us again next week on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. Till then, have a great week.